Hello and welcome to the SciPhi show. I'm Joe,
And I'm Dave.
and it's great to have you all back here. Today we're going to be covering off something that we hope that you guys find interesting. Dave recently introduced me to a TV show that I've only just started watching it. In fact, I've only just watched the third episode before coming on stream. So I'm behind, but here's your warning. There will be spoilers. Now, spoilers for what, I hear you ask? Well, Severance. And this isn't the Danny Dyer Severance where he, gets wasted and there's a load of killing in a forest, which was highly entertaining.
Great film, yeah, just different one.
No, but this is an absolutely great Severance as well. Now, Dave, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what this Severance is all about?
Yeah, and I'll try not to spoil it for you as well, because I know you're only 3 episodes in.
It's fine. I
No,
know the ending.
because there's some
I
great...
don't really.
Yeah, there's some great twists and turns along the way, so I'll try not to spoil it. But it's essentially about this guy who works for a company called Lumen. And
the company's called Lumen, not the guy.
the company is called Lumen, yeah. And this company runs this thing where you get a treatment called the Severance. And what it is it's a chip that they put in your head that splits you off into 2 personalities, or 2 distinct people, I guess you could say, which is something we'll discuss during the stream. But it makes it so that you're not aware you have an innie and an outie, as they call them. Yeah. The outie is you outside of work, and the innie is the personality inside of work. And the one in work has no memory of outside of work, and the one outside of work has no memory of in the workplace.
Yeah, and the reason they do this is because they're saying, the work is so sort of high profile, private, confidential that you can't even have any memory of the work when you leave that place. And the people who have signed up to be these people, they've actually done it because they want to. They have fully relinquished the control. They know that the procedure is not reversible. And
the main character was a history teacher, and his wife died in a car accident. And after that, he found he couldn't go back to work because all he could do was think about it. So he went for the severance treatment, and then that allowed him to have a work life and not have to worry about grieving all day, and help him to overcome the grieving process.
Yeah, you do find that out in there. And that happens. You find out that one on the second episode, don't you?
Yeah, it's like pretty quick in the show.
Yeah, and the show actually opens up with just a woman waking up on a table. She's just lying on a table in a conference room. She has no memory of basically anything. She can talk, though. She can communicate. She seems very, very aware. She's frightened because she has no memory of how she got there or anything. And there's this voice that comes over and it starts talking to her, and asking about a survey, a set of survey questions. And obviously, she's getting.
I have a survey for you.
And she's freaking out. She doesn't know what's going on. Why do I have to answer these questions? And she answers these 5 questions, and the only one that she can answer is about a state in America. The rest of them were all personal questions, and it showed that she had no memory of her personal life, as in her outie's life, but there was some latent knowledge in there. So stuff that wasn't specific to her, like the state of America. And you notice there are other people in there when they talk sometimes. They talk about things like beaches, the ocean, and so on and so forth. So they've got this outside knowledge without ever actually experiencing the outside as the innie.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Because you got the actor John Turturro. I don't know if you know the name, but
The older
he's
guy, Irving.
the older guy. Yeah, that's it. And he's an art fanatic, and he has all these memories of all these pieces of art, the artist's names, everything about it, but he can't remember why,
Yeah, and he
or
even has
can't
that
remember
conversation with Christopher Walken, doesn't he?
Christopher Walken, who's absolutely amazing in the show as always.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything he's bad in. And
No,
it's interesting. They seem to have a bond that they don't realize they have as well. So I hope that's something that opens up to me in the future, and there's something there. Um, I'm hoping that story comes in. As I said, I'm only at the third episode,
I
but
don't
it's
want to spoil
probably,
it. So
yeah, it's probably good that I am only at the third episode. Otherwise, there'd be a hell of a lot more spoilers, and I'd probably be the Tom Holland on this show.
so would I. I'll try not to be, but
So yeah, I mean, we're not really here to tell you about the actual show, though. That was just sort of a brief overview of what it's about, a synopsis, if you will, or the blurb on the back of a book. But what we did want to discuss is the ideas that this actually brings up, because it addresses a lot of concepts and issues within philosophy.
yeah, like identity, mind, or some ethical questions, like not just questions of whether it's ethical to do, but questions surrounding, well, who's morally responsible for the actions at work? Um, like, do you have the right to bring a being into the world? Like, if we imagine that the innie is a distinct personality and a distinct person, do we have the right to bring that person into the world just to go off and do our work so that
It's
we don't
essentially
have to
having a kid just to have labor.
go do your work?
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of each day, you're essentially killing them because they
They don't
don't
have any
go
outside
anywhere at night.
experience.
Yeah. Um, and then you're resurrecting them the next day.
They live in
And
Plato's cave.
they kind of do, yeah. And there is elements of that as the show goes on as well. It's
Oh,
quite
nice.
interesting, yeah. So do you have the right to actually do that? Bring it Is it slavery? I mean, because 'cause they're not getting paid.
They get incentives,
Yeah, they
like
get
finger
little
traps.
trinkets at work, finger traps, they get, like,
Is it muffin
5
days
minutes
or?
of music and yeah, like a muffin day and a waffle day. But they're
Melon?
essentially melon, yeah. But they're essentially doing all your work, and you're getting all the pay.
And you've got
It
no memory
I'm
of doing the work either.
Exactly. I know it's your body doing the work, but it's not you doing the work. It's quite a it's quite a complicated topic.
Yeah, and it's not even a case of you essentially go to sleep and some automated process is just processing data or anything like that. You don't go into robo mode. It is a distinct personality taking over, or sort of a distinct
Yeah, because
personality.
there is some blend of and Helly you
Yeah,
see as the show starts to go on. I think maybe by the 3rd episode you've already seen it where it's not really taking. She
yep.
wants out of there. It starts to build on that. Um, and I'll sort of spoil it a little because there's an important question raised here. In that the inside personality just doesn't want to be there. She's like, nope, I'm not happy with this. I don't want to do this. I'm not happy with just being here during the day and then being blotted out at night. So I want to resign.
And she doesn't even like the work either.
No, she hates the work. Um, and they have to get permission from the Audi for her to resign. And the Audi says no. So does she have the right to say that that innie doesn't have the right to quit?
Yeah. No, well, it's a tough one. I the gut instinct says no. I don't think she does because it's a distinct personality on the inside. Um, well, as we said, a sort of distinct personality. But I think maybe we should reel it back and discuss perhaps the identity stuff before we address the ethical question, because it might make it easier to understand where we're going with this. So I suppose that's where we'll start and go. What do we mean by identity, and what do you mean by identity, Dave?
Well, if we consider something like Hume's bundle theory, where our self is simply this bundle of perceptions and this bundle of memories, and because we have these distinct perceptions and we have these distinct memories, we are a person, so to speak. We are a self. So if the innie has a very distinct bundle of perceptions, and the outie has a very distinct bundle of perceptions and memories, you would say that they're two distinct personalities, really, wouldn't you? Because the outie doesn't know what the inside of Lumen looks like,
Mm-hmm.
and the innie doesn't know what the innie doesn't know what the outside world looks like. So you could argue there's two distinct personalities there.
I'd agree, and I'd also say that where there is the overlap in the personality is the self is influenced by the body. So they will be predisposed to certain behaviors and characteristics just from their biology.
From the
Um,
genes and the way the brain is structured, yeah. And
exactly.
like you said earlier, they still have certain memories. Like, they remember how to talk, they remember the artwork, they remember beaches. And there's an external thing to this, to Severance, where there's something called the Lumen Letters. And it's something Apple put up, and it's basically a letter that an ex-employee wrote to a newspaper. Sorry, I was trying to remember if it was a newspaper or a news station. And it's a letter that she wrote about what's going on at Lumen. And she has a conversation with her innie as if it's two distinct personalities. She uses this code that her and her sister made up as a child. Um, and the innie starts to recall the code as she goes on and works. So they start writing these letters to each other. She writes them during the day, the innie, and leaves it in the pocket. And then the outie gets it at night and reads it and then sends it back in that code to the innie. Um, so they still share certain common childhood memories, but have very distinct bundles of perceptions. So it's not so much two distinct personalities, but a branched personality. So if you think
Mm.
of it in a sort of transporter problem kind of way as well.
Yeah, different Rikers. Like if they did the Riker, but then wiped all of his personal memories.
Yeah, so it became a new personality, but with these very vague childhood memories.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Um, so obviously they're two distinct selves, or a branched self sharing the same body.
Yeah, and this kind of brings you back to something like Locke,
Mm-hmm.
with the man-person distinction. Now, one of the thought experiments you could go with here is the Prince and the Pauper, or the Prince and the Cobbler, or Socrates and the Mayor. So imagine you have a, a prince who wakes up one morning and he looks down and he sees his hands and they're all knobbly. Um, and he looks in the mirror and he sees like a pockmarked face that's all bloated from tanning. And He sees that he's got all these memories of himself as a child being the prince, but he's now in a different body. Um, and the cobbler wakes up in the prince's body. He's got all his memories, um, but he's now in this new body. You would still say he's the cobbler, wouldn't you?
Mm.
Even though he's now in the prince's body.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. But
and the
is it
same with the
now his
prince.
body?
That's it. Yeah. And if you think of that in terms of Severance, if this distinct personality now wakes up in his body, is it now his body?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's their shared home, but essentially, as their distinct personalities, you'd say that they're responsible for anything that they do for their own body. Because
Yeah.
it's a shared body. It's neither one nor the others, really, but for the time that they're active in it, they're responsible for what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And to think about more on the distinct personality thing, if we think of Socrates and the mayor, which is another John Locke kind of thing to show the man person distinction, imagine you have a mayor of some town, Mayorville, let's go with, because that'll do it. I'm not very original. Um, Now he is the mayor during the day and he runs the office and all this. And then he goes to sleep at night and he wakes up an hour later and he's Socrates. Um, which is a very distinct personality. I mean, it's not quite the same as Severance because they're two very distinct
Mhm.
personalities. Um, but again, you would say that these are two different people. Um, they might be the same man, because what Locke calls man is the body itself. And what Locke calls person is the actual psychological, mental mind phenomenon going on,
Mhm.
and the behavior patterns and the memories. And that's what makes you the person, is this connection of memories and this connection of ideas. And you could say the same about the severance thing, because it's the same as Socrates and the mayor, because you have the outie, who is the mayor, who gets to work and then goes to sleep and wakes up as the innie. So on that lines, you could say that there is a man-person distinction going on there.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that as well. So, where does this leave things like rights for the individual identity?
That's a very good question and a very interesting one. Because if we go back to now the Helly thing, where
Mm.
the Audi says she doesn't have the right to quit because it's her body. She's the one that she's the person. The innie is just a character that's been created so that she can do the work. And Helly doesn't have to go through the monotony of the work. I mean, does she have the right to do that? Does she have the right to withhold? Or if this is a very distinct personality, does she have the same workers' rights as anyone who's not a severed personality?
I mean, I would say I think they ought to. Um, it's interesting because I mean, from one hand, you can see like the attraction to it. Now, these people aren't doing it just so that they don't have to work. As we mentioned, the main character Mark was doing it to avoid the pain of losing his wife, but a lot of it is the fact that the work is so confidential.
Confidential.
Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. So confidential that they're not allowed to see it outside of the work. So they may have been working at Lumen beforehand and got a promotion or went for a job to be on one of the severance floors. And I don't know if we don't know yet to where I'm at, why Helly chose to do this. I don't know if you find out later.
You do.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's such a big twist, I'm not gonna reveal it.
Okay. Um, she's a spy. um, but Sorry. I forgot what I was going to say.
You were talking about workers' rights and the severed.
Yes. So we can assume that at least a portion of these people have chosen to put themselves into this situation, but in doing so, they have created a new personality. At which point, it's akin to creating a fully formed child of yourself. You know, it's you almost have this responsibility and accountability for them, but they are their own person because they are an adult in the same thing. It's not like a baby where you have their rights because you're looking after them and you've got a few extra rights over them until they reach a certain age and can make the decisions themselves. They are an adult.
And the thing is the Audi can't watch over them because when one's active, the other's not. Um, so it's not like there is this parental thing going on. You know, it's I'm not here, so now you're here. Go look out for yourself. It's sort of like saying to your 6-year-old kid, okay, go out and get a job. See you later. But better do good at this job.
They also can't even know what is actually going on in there, like in any way, shape, or form. So
Yeah, each department is kind of hidden from the other department. You sort of see the thing going on between Christopher Walken and John Turturro, but they're not really supposed to fraternize with each department or anything like that. It's all so hush hush that they're not even really supposed to bond at work. It's just that they have no choice but to allow certain levels of bonding.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that you noticed from the start. Their chief has disappeared, and they don't know why, and they're not allowed to know why. And it's the outside one. They just say, "Well, yeah, if someone doesn't choose to come back, then you won't see them again."
Yeah, and if you quit, and this is another one of the interesting things, if you quit, your innie never comes back.
Mm.
So have you killed them?
Yeah, to a degree, you could argue,
You
do
have,
they exist at all? But they seem to.
but they seem to, yeah. I mean, they might exist only in this space, but if you think about, you have a certain version of yourself at work that only exists at work, um, but it's still you because it's you being performative at work.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this case, it's not quite so much you being performative at work, it is a completely different person.
Yes, yeah, no, I agree there. It's tough though, isn't it? Like, I suppose that's why there are people who have within the show who have this problem against the whole Severance thing. But it's also hush hush. No one really knows what goes on at the same time.
Yeah, I
So
mean, for all those people know, inside the Severance building, those people could just be tanning all day and,
yeah,
you know, playing video games that are just too secretive to allow out. They don't actually know what's going on. But still, the ethical and philosophical ideas behind it kind of raise the questions that those protesting against it raise.
yeah, most definitely. So I think we can say that they probably do deserve all those rights. But if they have those rights, do they have the right to actually leave themselves? Like if they have the choice, if they want to leave, that means they are killing themselves as well. Like if they want to leave and never return.
Or they could just switch off the trigger that switches back to the Audi.
Oh,
Do you see what I mean? Because what happens is when they get in the lift, they pass through this certain thing, and that triggers the chip and switches the Audi back on. And when they come in and the lift goes up, it triggers the innie. Um, so they could just switch that off and allow the innie to go out and enter the real world and become a real person, or well,
Would the innie have
becoming
that right? Because they would then be killing the
they would then be
outie,
killing the
but the
outie
outie chose to create them in the first place. So do they have more right to the body
to the body. Yeah,
because
because it
they
is
didn't
originally
choose to be
their body.
created?
Yeah, it is originally their body
Mm,
who they've loaned to this personality, um, sort of, but they've also created the personality.
exactly.
Um, so whose body is it? Who gets the rights to the body if the innie is a separate person and the outie is a separate person? The outie wants the innie wants to live a life outside of Lumen. Who has the right? Which is another interesting sort of philosophical and ethical question.
Yeah. Uh, I'd say
Because again,
they chose to do it though, didn't they? They chose to create this additional personality. It's not like the personality was thrust on them or it was split due to trauma or anything like that. It's not like a dissociative identity disorder.
no,
Um,
that's it. It's not like something that's just happened to them because of biology and psychology, et cetera, et cetera. They have chosen to have an implant that makes this happen. So they've chosen to bring this personality in and chosen to give their body to this personality. So does that give them the right to say, well, this personality is only allowed to exist in my body at these times?
mm,
Or is that, is it, well, you've created this being, um, and you're basically essentially using them as a slave and saying they're only allowed to exist in this time. But why? What gives them special right to say, well, you must die at the end of every day so that I can live?
yeah. Yeah, it's quite cruel and evil. And they are, as you brought up earlier, essentially being treated as slaves. They might have slightly better working conditions, but there's even elements of torture that go on there.
Yeah, that I was just about to say. As the show gets on, you'll see that it's not quite the nice place.
Mm.
There are things that happen. Like, have they mentioned the break room yet in the third?
They've been in the break. So Mark went in the break room in episode 2, and then Helly went in episode 3. And I did watch the beginning of episode 4, and she was completely demoralized by the end of.
Yeah. So
Um,
they call it the break room, but they don't mean break as in relax. They mean break as in we are going to break your spirit.
yeah.
So you're essentially handing over this person to be tortured and demoralized and saying, well, it's nothing to do with me.
Do people know that there's this room there?
They can't.
Exactly. So you are handing them over, and that is going to happen, but they don't know. And I think intent is part of the thing. You know, they don't intend for it to be an overly bad place.
But if you're going to create this personality who's going to be working in this secretive place, do you have responsibility for their suffering while they exist during
Yes.
this time? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you've
So,
got responsibility. I'm just saying there isn't the intent there
oh yeah,
to
yeah. There's no intent, but
but you are
they
still
have a
responsible.
response. Yeah, there's a sort of responsibility to make sure that they don't come to any harm. And if you can't know that they're not going to come to any harm beyond average workplace accident, and they have no way of filing a complaint that they're being mistreated, is there a certain element of responsibility where once they say, I don't want to be here anymore, you must pull them out?
I would think so. I think that it shouldn't even go to asking the outie. You know, um, yeah,
Oh, I agree with that because if they're their own person and they then would have some sense of self-guidance and right to self-guidance. Um, so they should have the right, just like any other human rights kind of based doctrine. But then, are you allowing them to commit suicide if you allow them to quit?
sort of. Yes, you are. I mean, the body continues to live, but the personality no longer does. But if they would choose to be dead overworking, then that's their choice as well. But they have to be fully informed of that consequence as well.
Yeah, and should that be some sort of trigger to make you say, well, maybe there's something really wrong going on in this company. This person would rather kill themselves than spend another day at that job. Um, and the other thing is it ethical to create a being where you use the idea that if they quit, they're committing suicide as a sort of motivator to keep them there?
No, no. I mean, there's no matter what way you cut it, there's really, really nothing ethical about the place at all.
It's really dodgy, isn't it? Everything about it. But it's so compelling to watch it go on at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. I must admit, we've been loving it so far. I mean, Katie's been really gripped by it too, and it's been nice because we haven't found anything that's gripped us in a while. We've had stuff on that, we've either been chatting to or, checking our phones, catching up on social media and whatever. But this is the first thing that we're sort of there and we're quiet for the whole episode and we go, God blimey, at the end of each one, and then have a little chat about it.
Yeah, what's going on? Yeah, me and Emma did the same. It's because the first 3 came out in one block and we watched them and we're like, I mean, we got to wait a week? What the fuck? And then each week it's the one show that we watched like every Friday with our dinner, switched everything off, wouldn't respond to text, nothing like that. We just focused on the show. And that's one of the great things about the show is that the story itself and the characters are all really fantastically written. And
they've chosen
kind of gets it. Even if you don't think about these philosophical ideas, it's the actual thing going on that will grip you.
Sorry, just a message from Philip. Is this stream spoiler free? No. But we've pretty much skirted around the detail and the things that you'll be surprised about. We've mentioned a few things that happen, but we're focusing more on the things like the identity and the self and certain things. So we do mention stuff that's going on, Philip. But we're not going into detail. I'm only on the 3rd episode anyway, so I can't provide you too many spoilers. But yeah, you do have to learn certain points, as Dave's just said in there. Know what the show's about and certain things that the characters do, but without spoiling too much of it.
Yeah, I'm not giving away plot details like that. It's more just, even if you only basically know what the show is about, where it's these workers who have this procedure, that's what we're discussing rather than the actual show, even though we're sort of discussing the characters as well.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that is going to be given away.
No.
Because it's too good. I wouldn't ruin it. The joy of what comes is not something I would want to ruin for anybody.
No. This is Dave's only nice thing he's doing for the year, by the way. So take him up on it. No, it's yeah, I don't know how you get around the rights issue though in any way. It's there's nothing about it. I mean, the workers are scared, but some of the things in there, they have really odd fears that haven't opened up to me why they're odd, but other than they have no other outside experience. So should I mention the soap?
Oh, yeah, go for it. I don't think that's a spoiler.
No. So there's this one point of no, you can't do that. You don't want them to switch to the bad soap. Just like, what? It just really dries your hands out. Like, what is this bad soap? I don't know if you find out if there is anything more sinister than that, but it's just something
No,
that
you
comes
don't.
up. But they're scared about so many things that could happen in this place, and they actually find their work that they do scary. And at the moment, their work doesn't make any sense to me.
It never actually kind of does.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the work is kind of interesting because it's all about emotions. Like, you need to put these numbers in the bins, and some of them will scare you, some of them will excite you, but it's never actually really explained.
Uh, Maybe that'll be something that will come out in the future.
I think that's more a season 2 thing, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's only 9 episodes in this season.
Which is odd for an American series as well. Like that's
Yeah,
closer
even
to
for
a
Apple
UK
Plus.
series. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's if you think about how kind of brave this show is, um, it's taking a lot of chances and it's being very different and it's being kind of on the nose as well when it comes to like what work life is like. It's taking it to an extreme, but it's also still kind of on the nose. Um, and I've seen a lot of people complain about how weird it is and how odd it is and how they're not gelling. They like the ideas, but they're not gelling with the show itself. I
Oh,
mean, if you
really?
think about even the theme tune, it's got this really weird dissociative
Yeah.
kind of sense to it that, the piano theme.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, they're not quite gelling with it. So I'm guessing they didn't want to risk doing a super long run, throw it out there, see how it goes. And if it does well, it's also doing very well. There's a lot of like really good fans, but a lot of people aren't enjoying it at the same time, unfortunately.
I can't imagine it'd be something that it is everyone's cup of tea though. It's well, as we mentioned, it's quite dark. You know, they're if you actually put yourself in that world where there are however you see it, you're either one of these people that is trapped down there and your only life is work, uh, or you're one of these people who can see what's going on from the outside, that there's obviously something wrong going on. um yeah. And that isn't how most people like to feel when they're watching TV. Their average, watching is your sitcoms and your reality TV crap.
Yeah, I mean, I got to admit, I love stuff that I can just switch off. I can just switch myself off, watch, enjoy,
Hmm.
like the old Jackass films. I can put them on and laugh for 90 minutes and not have to think, and that's a good feeling.
Definitely. I mean, I love sitcoms
Yeah,
myself though as well. Like,
yeah.
and I used to love the CKY movies as well. I actually preferred them to the Jackass ones. Um,
CKY?
it was what they did before Jackass.
Ah, right. Okay.
Bands
Yeah,
are like
yeah,
the first stuff,
yeah,
and yeah. Um, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with having something that you can switch your mind off to. But I think that this is something that is, especially if you're someone who has quite a busy day as well. It can be a bit much to be getting your mind working overdrive on this, and you might sit there afterwards going, "Oh, and what about?" and "Oh."
yeah. To some degree, it kind of reminds me of The Good Place, where there's a sort of multi-level thing going on. You can just enjoy it for what it is. You can sit and think about the things that it raises and the things that it's trying to teach and the messages it's trying to put across. And it's just full of likable characters. But of course, The Good Place had that comedy element going on, which separates it slightly because it's, like you said, Severance is quite dark.
So what if, right, this distinct personality decides to kill one of their co-workers? Who is responsible for that? There's obviously, we've discussed that it's a distinct personality, or it's a branched personality. By the way, I don't know if that happens or not. That wasn't a spoiler. It was a what if.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It
Okay,
doesn't.
but so we What if that was to happen though? Okay, the distinct personality, there's a second self or a branch personality. There's obviously the responsibility of that personality. But again, as the original personality who has chosen this new personality to be created and put there, do they have a share in the responsibility?
That's an excellent question, and one of the ones that I was going to bring up, because that personality inside the workplace wouldn't exist if you didn't create it and bring it into life and choose for it to go and do this job, because you have it's sort of like the professor who builds a robot to go and kill somebody. Is the robot morally responsible, or is the professor morally responsible? Um, and but in that case, there's a distinct difference in that the professor knew he was going to, and in this case, the Audi doesn't know that the innie's going to do that, or is even capable of doing that, because the Audi might not be capable of doing that. But I would say that yes, there is a shared responsibility, because if this innie only exists in this time and you brought him into this world and you put him in this place, and you've not made sure that you have some sense of being able to keep track of what's going on, then you share some responsibility for the pressure that this innie is under.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about something like this, and this isn't what Lumen does, but imagine if you gave the severance procedure to a soldier, and he was doing guided missiles and cruise missiles and that kind of stuff. And the severed personality decided, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to bomb everybody. Is it only that person that can be charged? Is it only the innie? And if so, how do you actually punish that person?
Well, if you're in somewhere where there's the death penalty, you'd probably just not let them come back. But would that be
But is that justice?
Yeah.
And, like, would they go through a trial? And if they have to serve, say, 10 years, does that mean that the Audi has to become the innie
Yeah.
for those 10 years?
Yeah, because if it is just the innie's responsibility, then it would have to be them feeling that time for the 10 years. At which point, you've still sort of punished the outie because they'll blink and they'll lost 10 years.
Yeah, they'll wake up having spent 10 years in jail, even though they didn't go through it personality-wise. They were still in jail for 10 years.
Oh. Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? But I think there is that shared responsibility there that you mentioned before. Like, I don't think you can just punish the innie. If it was... See, this is the thing. If it was a case where you literally cloned yourself and one was stuck there all the time, then I think that would be different. I think you'd still have a bit of responsibility because you've done that to them.
Just so that you can escape the moral responsibility. So if you've done it just to escape the moral responsibility, does that then give you some moral responsibility?
Yeah. But oh dear.
And here's a bigger question. Another one just to, get the mind going. If a company is doing these things and they create this procedure just so that they can have a separate personality who's going to do these things and never tell anyone, do they have an even greater moral responsibility for what goes on because they plan this so that they can get away with these things and not have anybody tell them and not have any of the moral responsibility, because I'm not the one firing the bombs, it's them.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the company's definitely morally responsible in every way, shape, or form for anything that goes on because of their procedure,
Yeah,
and you know.
but is it a greater moral responsibility because they've created this procedure just
Just
so
to
that
do
they
that.
can get away with these things and nobody can spill any of the information?
I'd say that does factor into it because they've gone in with the intent. They've had that additional intent of escaping all this extra stuff.
Escaping the
So
moral. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's it.
yeah, yeah. Lone Wolf has says, oh, hang on, I've got random buttons appearing on my thing. Lone Wolf says Altered Carbon sort of covers this pretty well. They have a whole system of you being freeze locked while your body is rented out for others, for to others for vacations. So I mean that's a bit different to this because obviously this is you don't have different bodies that you can jump into. You're literally just sharing your original body. So it would be like if I had two distinct personalities that yeah, I could flick with a switch. Not that I could literally do it, but were flicked with an internal switch. Um, then I'd go into prison as the alternate personality that had done the crime. That alternate personality would have 10 years of life in there, and then it would switch back, and I'd be 10 years older. I'd have lost 10 years of my life, plus who knows what happened to me in there. I might have a ton of wounds. I might be, paralyzed. I could have been killed in there and never actually wake up again. Um, yeah.
And
Alter Carbon
and
was interesting though.
it was a brilliant show, yeah. Here's another thing about the prison thing. If it's unjust to punish somebody for the crimes of another person, and the Audi is getting punished for the crimes of the in, which one takes precedence? Do we be unjust to the Audi and serve justice to the innie, or forego justice to the innie so that the Audi has justice?
Yeah, it's a tough one. You you're almost at the point where oh,
It's a sort of
it's
dirty hand scenario.
yeah, and which does take precedence. Similarly, if the outie happened to do something wrong, say the innie, right, loved their job, right? They really liked their life, or they may not love their job, but they actually like existing. They want to carry on existing. But the outie does something and gets thrown in jail. The innie then doesn't experience life for 10 years or possibly ever again. Is there a responsibility to the innie? You know,
Yeah, very good point.
um, in that situation, should the punishment actually just be you're switched to your other personality for the next X amount of time? And
And you're never allowed to leave work.
yeah,
Because if you think about it, they could switch off the innie and then give the person sedatives, the Audi sedatives, so that they would sleep through the night, wake up the next morning,
yeah.
and then the innie takes place again. But you would still be damaging the body of the innie by giving these things.
Could you set up a room at the office so they'd actually have living there? They did have that. There's that house there, isn't there? They could have other. They could build something like that for these special situations.
Yeah, or do they have a method to actually not allow the Audi to come back? If you think about it, well, we're switching the Audi off for 10 years and allow the innie to then go on and create this life and live in the house, like you say. So they have the outside experience, but that defeats the purpose of the severance thing to begin with, so that
Yes.
nothing gets out of the workplace.
Yeah. But should that even be allowed in the first place? um, I think it'd be a bit different if it was literally just the work memories being cut off, right? If you had a job where you were still you, but just when you left work, the memory got. It's the fact that it's a completely separate self. And I know you can make an argument that the continuity of your memory is something that makes you you. Um, but I think the majority of your memories would still be there. You just wouldn't remember your workday, and you'd know everything else, sort of.
Yeah, I guess so. But if that memory counts as continuity for a distinct personality, then you know what happens then?
Yeah,
It's a tough one. Or could they create a chip, put another chip in there so that it switches from one innie to another innie? That innie exists only outside, and then when the time is done, they remove one chip and regress back the personalities. But it seems to be in the case of the show that these thing isn't reversible.
yep.
So they couldn't actually do anything like that. At least not in the world that this show
No,
creates.
no, no, no. I was just more thinking about if you could just choose to not have certain memories rather than having to, be a completely different personality or a branched personality. Would that make it better?
I mean, to some degree, it is kind of what's going on anyway. They're just choosing to stop memory formation, or they're basically using the brain as a hard drive,
Mm-hmm.
and they're partitioning the hard drive. So the C drive is the outie, the D drive is the innie, and one is flowing to another in the fat tables,
Yeah.
and you know, um, so they're just partitioning off the memory. So to some degree, that is what they're doing. It's just how we define a person is based on these bundles of perceptions and these memories and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you
Interesting.
wanted to define a person as just any biological being with a brain who is alive and can make conscious decisions, then they're still one and the same person. And then you have the problem of, well, if he doesn't know he's doing this during the day, how can he be morally responsible for it at night?
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult. Although then you could say the same with someone with having memory loss. Someone does something wrong
Yeah,
and
I was
has
going to
memories.
say, with the thing, we were saying, are they morally responsible for what the innie does during the day because they've created them? To some degree, you could say that it's kind of like the drunk guy.
Hmm.
He goes out and he gets so wasted, he doesn't know what he's doing. He kills somebody. He wakes up in the morning, goes, "Holy fuck, did I do that?" We would still count him as morally responsible, even though he has no memory
And no control because he chose to put himself in that
because,
situation
yeah,
and he chose not to be responsible. And
yeah. So
yeah,
would the same thing work for the innie and the outie?
yeah,
But
to a
most
degree.
people's intuitions would be, well, no, because he's not the one making these decisions. And he
Yeah.
didn't know going in. All the things are very similar, but we would kind of see them in a sort of different way.
You would, and I
And
mean,
I'm,
it'd be a bit different if it was something like a traumatic experience or a repressed memory or, um, an actual dissociative personality disorder, um, where it was creating these other things. Like any negative consequences that came out of that, we'd have. They didn't choose to put themselves in that situation in the first place, and this, I think, that's the difference. So whilst the severed personality feels like it should be treated like a dissociative personality disorder type thing or a dissociative identity disorder, um, it's it is different because there's that choice like there is with the alcohol, and just because or drug or whatever, they've chosen to take a substance that has caused them to act in a certain way, and a negative consequence has come out of it. They've chosen to have an implant in their head, which has created a different personality, which has then caused the body to do these things that they share. So it's actually more like that situation, than it is, someone with
You could
DID.
you could throw in another kind of spanner here and say, well, what if the company they were working for told them that all they were doing was working on confidential files and the information couldn't get out? Nothing that they would do would have an impact on the outside world, even though once they get in there, everything they do has an impact on the outside world. Does that limit the responsibility?
It limits their responsibility in the work that they're doing, but not in if they killed a colleague. Back to that example, if they killed like a colleague, just like someone at their level, not someone who's forcing them to do the work, but
Suddenly snapped and stuck a stapler in
exactly.
the eye of the guy next to them, yeah. And if you think about the way the offices are kind of like, or the office, because you only really see the one, don't you?
Mhm.
The way they've got the chairs and the desks situated, they're not actually close enough to each other to do anything to each other. So I'm wondering if in the past something like that has happened and they've now moved everything around and made a contingency.
Yeah, possible, very possible. Or was it the fact that maybe there was an uprising before as well? Everybody actually grouped
Yeah,
together. They had,
like unionized.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because they collaborated, um, and and that's why they don't like people fraternizing now. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question. Yeah, you don't really see anything like that in the show. I'm just throwing out the hypothetical.
Hmm. Uh, as we said, minimal spoilers. Most of it is just us trying to go, "Ooh, what about?"
Yeah, yeah, that's it. So that's what makes the show sort of interesting for me is, not just the plot. The plot is fantastic, but there's all these kind of questions that is raised by it. And it's hard to believe it's written by Ben Stiller as well.
Yes, yeah, and yeah. No, I was surprised by that. Um, there isn't much that I see from him. I think is of any note. Um, but this is brilliant. Like,
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
don't get me wrong. I like Ben Stiller's comedy. I think like Tropic Thunder was
I mean,
incredible.
that was all right. Yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
about the only one I think I liked.
Really smart. I liked him in Dodgeball. I thought Dodgeball was a really good film, just a really fun, stupid film. I generally tend to like what he does.
Uh,
It's just I don't quite expect this level of sci-fi from him.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. His movies just have never really appealed to me. But this is just great. It's just, yeah. I just sit there every time his name pops up in the credits, directed by Ben Stiller. I'm like, no,
Yeah, I
no.
thought maybe I was seeing wrong, and it was some other guy called Ben Stiller,
Yeah.
but it is actually him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, you should do a cameo as Zoolander. I wasn't a fan of the films, but it was definitely quotable. Um,
yeah, and it's quite a good character. It's like Bruno. Is that the Sacha
I
Baron
still haven't
Cohen
watched it,
character?
but yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
It's not particularly good, but it's that similar kind of character, isn't it?
Yeah. Um, yeah. Yes, Robert Downey Jr. was amazing in Tropic Thunder. Yes, I completely agree with you, Lone Wolf. But still, it was still only okay overall. I don't know. I think I do have a bias against Ben Ben Stiller anyway. So when I just watch stuff by him, I'm generally like, whereas yeah, this was just a surprise, and I like really. But yeah. Anyway, where were we? Got on to. I'm not supposed to be chatting about Ben Stiller and what we like and don't like about his work.
It's what we do.
Hey,
It's what we do.
Claire, nice to have you here.
Yeah. So I suppose another thing is the workplace itself, the ethics, the company itself. If they've created this thing, um, do they do they have certain moral responsibilities to make sure that the people inside the thing are not just protected, like we already know about the break room, um, and the things that they do, but do they have extra responsibilities because they can't do things like unionize and fight for rights outside in the same way that any other worker could, who could, have meetings after work and say, look, this is what's wrong with the workplace. We need to fight. We need to protest. We need to picket. All those things are gone from a workplace like that. So what they have is just purely obedient workers who can't actually fight for their own rights. So then, does the company have extra moral responsibility to make sure that not only those rights are being met and protected, but say allow outside organizations in, and which would defeat the purpose of the severance? But do they have a responsibility to have, or like say the UN, do they have a certain responsibility to make sure that those workers are being treated well?
Yeah, I think so. Though isn't I suppose thinking about employment law, very different in America as it anyway as it is in England. And I know there are other countries around the world that have it a lot better than England, but I'd say that we definitely have it a lot better over here than you do as
Oh yeah,
standard
most
in
definitely.
America. And I almost see this as like the if America felt they could get away with it, this is how they actually would treat their employees.
Like Lone Wolf said in the thing, is severance a natural consequence of Amazon employees unionizing? And while that's a joke, I sort of see there is an actual point in that, and I think a company like Amazon would do that if they could get away with it. Because let's face it, Jeff Bezos is a prick, and he's kind of a dictator when it comes to work. Now, imagine if he could have it where he's working these Amazon workers in that way, but and where they have to pee in bottles, they can't take breaks. If he could get away with that and have this system where it wouldn't allow them to leak that back out, I have no doubts at all that he would do it.
Not good at all.
And here's the other thing. Could a company get away with not giving pay rises? Like, could they tell the INI, oh, don't worry, you're going to get a pay rise? You know, uh, and then never give the Audi the pay rise, or tell the Audi, well, you're working there, it's adequate, but it's not really deserving of any kind of pay rise, even though you're being worked to the bone inside that workplace.
Well, that'd be mean. Oh, do you know what? Sorry, I've just been distracted by the fact that earlier we were having those camera issues before we started the stream.
Yeah.
I've just noticed that the alignment's like completely gone on on it all, and I obviously didn't fix that before the stream. Sorry, that just completely threw me off. So yes, no, I'm with you there. I think you're going back to your point, because this is, a slippery slope of what could happen if they could get away with it. I think that you're right. There should be some outside party that isn't affiliated with the country at all, right? Like,
Yeah, because a company that powerful can have people in high places who just sign off on everything. Is, oh yeah, we went in there and it was perfect. Best workplace ever. I've never seen a worker treated so well. But inside the company,
yeah,
these workers are being worked like slaves.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't
And
know what company that would be. I mean, like you mentioned, like the UN, probably wouldn't fall under their remit, though, would it? Like,
if there's the UN Human Rights Council,
right?
would it fall under their remit?
Yes, I guess it would.
Or, and would it be up to, say, the UN to create a new body
For dealing with
to,
this.
yeah, because if they're the ones that are sort of in charge of human rights and, all that kind of stuff, do they have a responsibility to create a thing where they go off and, make sure that these people are being treated correctly?
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, it would have to be top level security, sign the NDAs and everything, and yeah.
And the UN actually has the kind of power to create that kind of system.
Would
But
they have to create someone? Would that person, right, have to be
would they
also a
have to create
severed,
a severed person?
which
Yeah.
they could then only report back under certain, they'd have to be a severed department. So they'd be severed, they'd leave, they'd then go back to the UN, they'd go down into this severed zone, and they'd give their report of what it was like there as well.
But then are the UN also breaching all those morality things of having created a person to exist only to do certain jobs, and they're guilty of killing a person at the end of each day?
Yeah, you're back to the same problem. So basically,
Yeah.
we just should never let this happen then.
No, we should definitely never let something like this happen. But it is an interesting idea to
Oh
think
yeah.
about. And to be honest, I think one of the scary kind of things about it is that there would be a lot of people that would be tempted by something like this because they
Sure.
wouldn't think about the
The ethical
kind of, yeah,
considerations.
they
No.
wouldn't think about it. They just think, okay, well, I can just go off and not
Skip
suffer the
work.
monotony of work. Yeah. And another one reason I don't think this would actually happen, maybe in certain circumstances, but I don't think it would be general, is that as we go on more and more, life and work are meshing. If you think about, you have to always have your emails ready. Um, Lots of people do work from home. Um, yeah. Um,
This is
but
my
even in the
office.
case of, well, even in the case of people who go into an office, if you think about a teacher, um, they still have work to do at home, marking papers. There is a blending of work life. There is no separation. There is no work life balance. But I suppose people like that might also be more tempted by it because I don't have a work life balance. I want a work life balance.
You could create really effective spies though by doing that. If you actually had different spy personalities in it, so people could you could actually train up a number of different. I know it probably wouldn't actually happen as you're saying, but I can see the technology being used. I mean, you train up your first soldier or your first spy, give them all the skills that they need. Those skills can go on to a different personality, and then you teach each one to be a different character. Um,
Think about a Manchurian candidate. Um, you could have this guy living his everyday normal life. What was the name of those stupid experiments in the 60s and the 70s by the CIA?
the ones with acid,
Yeah. What the hell was the name of it?
goats.
No, that was the men who stare at goats.
Uh,
Oh God, I can't remember. Kaczynski went through it. But that thing, anyway. Imagine if you could implant. No, not Project Black Book. Let me just search it up.
Search it up. A little darling, search it
MK
up.
Ultra.
Okay.
Yeah, so imagine if the CIA could implant this chip and create this innie who is this master, like you say, a master spy, master assassin, um, and they spend, say, 3 months doing this, and they just tell the person he's in a coma. Yeah, you've been in a coma for 3 months. Welcome back. Um, and then the guy never gets switched on, but he's been trained to assassinate one particular person, and when he gets close, they just switch on the innie
Yeah.
and then switch him off after it happens. The guy's, I've got no memory of ever doing this.
That's have you seen Treadstone?
No.
So it's basically a continuation of the Jason Bourne films, but a TV series.
Oh, right. Okay.
And they've got these sleeper agents like that. None of them even know who they are, and they get activated by like a signal at a certain time, and then they go absolutely wild, kill a bunch of people, and then sometimes they're switched back to their original personality, and they're like, got some blood on my hand. What's going on? But there's no bodies around them or anything like that. They've all been disposed of, but it's just suddenly like. So yeah, I mean that's the same sort of thing. Although I think
Yeah.
with them it's all like conditioning rather than
Yeah,
a
but
chip.
imagine if they didn't have to go through that
No,
conditioning.
exactly.
They could
It's just like
yeah.
yeah,
And what if they take the technology further where not only do they split the personality off, but they can actually implant using the chip and
yeah,
download these memories? Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
We're kind of going off piste here, obviously, but it's a fun thought experiment.
oh, definitely. I mean, you can conceive of that sort of thing happening as well, can't you? Like, it would have probably been completely sci-fi idea even 20 years ago, whereas now you're like, yeah, how far are we off this technology?
Well,
Is it
it's
already being used?
like Lone Wolf said, the TV show is just conditioning us to get ready for this to actually start happening in a big rollout. The COVID vaccinations, were they really just the implanting of the chips? We're
We've
all
worked
going
it
to be
out.
severed. Yeah. And no, conspiracy theory people, don't start watching our channel.
Or do.
Or do, yeah. And start sending us money. You know, we'll start saying what you want to hear.
Um, Lone Wolf was saying Project Black Book was the UFO research project, but I believe Terence McKenna and Tim Leary were both involved with the MK Ultra at one point. Yeah, Lone Wolf says he's also the only conspiracy theorist allowed here. There's nothing
Yeah, I
wrong
got to
with the
admit,
odd
I
one.
do enjoy a good conspiracy theory. Like, I don't buy into them, but I like the psychology behind how they work and why people buy them. But they're such grand plans that
Yeah,
there are authors who couldn't write books with plots as devious and well thought out as some of these conspiracy theories.
yeah, and I mean, so many of them are like the entire world's government, as if it's all one government, really.
Yeah.
Lying to you, and you just think, how hard is it for anyone to keep the most basic of secrets, and you're expecting the entire world's government that all hate each other to be
Well, if
colluding
you think
together.
about it, it's supposed to be this conspiracy of like the world's elite who are coming together and creating this world and planning all our lives out. Trump couldn't even plan out a dinner for like basketball players. He just brought McDonald's in. And he was a world leader. Do you know what I mean?
But was he just basically the Zaphod Beeblebrox?
Yeah, I suppose he could be.
There were the real
But
leaders behind him.
when you look at some of the other world leaders, they don't have to talk a lot of shite, and I don't. They can barely run a company. Yes, they make millions of dollars and all that, but I don't think any of them can work together because most of them are egomaniacs.
Hmm.
I mean, could you imagine Jeff Bezos going into partnership with somebody and having to give up some of his profits? No. He won't even pay his workers properly, let alone.
No. I wonder how it actually works for. We're going really off piece here, but like for employees in the UK, like, uh, does he hate Amazon UK because he has to actually treat his
He has to treat
employees
them
somewhat
well.
decently, or
Yeah.
does he somehow get away with it by?
You do hear some horror stories of the UK ones as well, like drivers who only get 2 minutes per drop off and, like losing money and bonuses because they've not hit their target of 100 runs because they've got stuck in traffic.
Uh, Not good. That's really not good.
That's why I say we should keep guillotines outside all their houses, just to remind them of who's really in charge.
So back onto the topic of tonight. Um, we should sever Jeff Bezos and Donald Trump.
Their heads, anyway.
No, seriously. We've obviously covered the identity portion, and we've basically. I mean, I know we only gave a brief overview of like identity, but they're essentially two different identities to a strong degree anyway. It's that branched personality, um a branched personality where one of them basically has amnesia over all of their personal life.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it.
um so they would both be responsible for their own decisions as well, but there is
Well,
additional, sorry.
here's one to throw in. Like you mentioned earlier, they're more like children.
Hmm.
Um, if you think about how excited they get by finger traps or a
Yes.
waffle party or a song being played for 5 minutes, they're like little, and everything is new to them all the time, and they get excited by these new things.
And they get worried by little things like bad soap.
Little, yeah. So they're more like teenagers.
Mm.
So do they only have the same amount of responsibility and decision making as we would give to, say, a teenager?
Yeah, no, I'd go with that. That's what I was gonna sort of say. Like they do have responsibility for their own actions. They both have responsibility for their own actions, but the Audi has that additional layer of responsibility, um, and they're not fulfilling that in any way, shape, or form because, well, they can't. And
There's no way to actually do it. They're just handing over this person to this company to do with what they please. Sure, it might be their body that they're also handing over. And have you seen the part where they leave the note on Mark's window?
no.
Something happens to him and they leave a note on his window. Okay, this isn't particularly a spoiler, but um, it's sort of interesting in that when somebody at work has something happen to them, like say they get cut, um, or they come out, oh my god, I've got a bruise. When they get to the car, there's a note on the car that says, "Oh,
Oh, so that was in
today
the first one where he had the bump on his head.
he had the bump on his head." Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and he got
there's a note. Unfortunately, your innie had an accident today at work. It was kind of amusing. It was visually appealing because of this comedic element. Here's a certificate for $5. Um, so that's how they get around the body being damaged. And, is that really enough?
no.
Like, if you were an Audi, wouldn't you go, well, why the fuck aren't you taking care of my body? I'm
Yeah.
loaning you this body. You might be putting another personality in there, but it's still my body. So better take the fuck care of it.
they do sort of play it. Well, see, they don't know any better, so they trust the company for whatever reason. It's misplaced trust, but they say, oh yeah, something happened, like a box fell on you or something like that,
Yeah.
when they're not telling them the truth of what actually happened. And so there's that additional problem of lying. Yeah, here's my body, look after it. No, but we'll
No,
tell
it's
you we
our
are.
body. Yeah. Well, you're in our workplace, it's our body.
Yeah.
And that again goes back to the whole kind of work thing in that when you go to work in a workplace, you are kind of selling your body to them. How much right do they have over your body? I mean, if you think about all the people that now complain about health and safety regulations. Oh my God, this is ridiculous. Most people, back in the good old days, we used to put a ladder on top of a bench and we used to balance on it with a 4-foot paintbrush, and nobody ever got injured except for the people that fell and broke their neck. And so, back then people would think, well, the body belongs to the workplace while you're there. And so is that a return to that kind of thing? But really, your body doesn't belong to them. Your labor does. And in this
Yes.
case, in the severance case, it's not even your labor that they're getting. It's somebody else's labor. It's your body's labor, but it's a different person's labor.
Yeah. And that person doesn't get rewarded for it.
Yeah, he never gets paid.
Yeah. As we mentioned, the little incentives, but I mean, really.
But you're the one reaping the reward for their work. It's no different than, like we mentioned earlier, it's not really any different than slavery. It's like having a child, raising him to be 16 and sending him to work. And when he gets home, it's like, well, where's my fucking money then?
Yeah.
And in the
Yeah.
case of a parent doing that to their child, we would say, well, that's immoral. That's not right for the parent to take all that child's money when he's the one going out and doing the work.
No, definitely not. Um, and I think the thing that makes it harder to think about for people, if they do have trouble thinking about it, that is because it is that person's original body. I think
Yeah.
that's what makes it so much harder to think about. Um, I think like I said, if it was a clone that was created and you did it, you'd probably have some other justifications. So those saying that if it was a clone that was created, they still deserve to get paid for what they're doing and all of that. But some of the moral responsibilities around the actions and things like that are probably easier, like punishments for them for jail time and things like that. But yeah, when it's the same body, it does make it that much more difficult to really consider all the ramifications. Um, but that's what makes it interesting as well.
Yeah. And just to throw in another one, like you said, that we feel an ownership of our body and what happens to it. And if you think about one of the abortion things, my body, my rights. So if you give birth to this personality within you, do you own the personality that's within you? Is it your right to do whatever you want to the personality that you have given birth inside you because you own what's in your body?
But we own our body because of our consciousness as such.
Yeah, but that consciousness is still a part of your consciousness. It's just nested within it.
Ugh, that makes it even more trippy, doesn't it?
Just to complicate it, yeah.
I still don't think it changes any of my answers or anything we've discussed tonight, but because I don't think you have. I mean, you've chosen to give right to a new consciousness. Well, a branched consciousness.
And Lone Wolf has just said something interesting. Can I abuse an alternative personality in my body like I can abuse a video game character? And I think that's one of the things that sort of, I mean, if you do have the right to the personality that's in you, then certainly you should have the right to treat it however you like. But the idea that they have emotions and feelings and can suffer adds a certain level of responsibility to it, that you're treating this personality who can suffer. So you're being immoral. Can you be immoral to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one way you could think about it is imagine if one day just happened, right? You grew a conjoined twin that was essentially like a half clone of yourself type thing, but it was still attached to you, and you had this you're sharing the body, and you can sort of both control it at different times and all of that. Do you have the right to just kill that one that grew out of your body?
That's it. Yeah. I mean, if you separate that conjoined twin and it dies, have you killed somebody or have you just removed a growth that you don't want on your body?
Again, doing it like that, it seems to make it a lot clearer, doesn't it? Like
Because there's a distinction there.
yeah.
Yeah. Whereas with this severance thing, that's one of the things that makes it so interesting, is that the distinction isn't quite so clear. It
Hmm.
seems clear when you take a step back, but when you start actually diving into it that little bit more, that distinction becomes slightly more blurred.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. uh, if you can take that consciousness and inject it into a hellscape, is it morally all right? No.
I mean, that's basically what's happening at Lumen.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that the name of like one of their episodes, or maybe even the first episode, like "Welcome to Hell" or something?
Could be. I didn't pay attention. I remember they all had really clever kind of episode titles.
Yeah, let's have a quick look to see if it on IMDb to see if it does have the episode list. I'm sure, like I saw one that was like "Welcome to Hell." Good news about Hell, season 1, episode 1.
Ah, there we go. Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, I can't wait for it. Oh, they've already got season 2 episodes listed. Oh, they have.
Ooh, nice one.
Yeah, so it's definitely coming then. But they don't have any of the episode names yet. Doesn't even
And
have.
hopefully it won't be like the first season of Snowpiercer, where there was like 2 years in between the first and the second season.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Snowpiercer actually.
I do. It's another one of my favorites.
I don't know how they're going to do a full season. I hear they're coming back for a full season, and it felt like it was like, do you know what? At the end of the third season was a good place to leave it. It doesn't fully wrap up the story, but it does sort of at the same time.
I think it adds a new level with what's happened at the end of the third season, because you can now have two distinct, separate stories going on.
You can,
Um, yeah, like I don't want to go into too much detail because it's going to spoil for anybody who hasn't seen them all yet. I mean, if you haven't, you watched the show, why the fuck haven't you? Because it's one of the best shows on TV.
yeah. Snowpiercer is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Another one
Yeah,
definitely worth checking out. Maybe one we should um,
a lot of
discuss
great
as well
philosophical
because
ideas in
yeah,
there. Yeah,
especially about power, um, and
yeah,
classes and all of that sort of stuff.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'll agree. Maybe we'll cover off that. I mean, if you like this sort of thing, I mean, we like doing it anyway, but we're probably happy to have these conversations among us ourselves if you'd rather a different conversation on these live streams. But I find it very interesting. In fact, if we got a group of us on here to discuss it, because it's always great to hear different takes from people who perhaps notice things that you didn't when you were watching it, especially if you've only done
Yeah.
one watch through. Um,
Well, I mean, I'm guessing most people don't like this because there's only Lone Wolf here chatting with us and watching this. We seem to have put everybody off with this episode, but I have to admit,
I
I'm
was
really
right.
enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it as well. But I was late setting up the show, and I think my auto poster that posts it around a few different places around the internet didn't actually work. So most people probably didn't get notified that this stream was happening. Um, so it could also be that, but never mind. One of those things. Um,
Well, we got 3 likes, so, we're doing well.
I don't care. I like it. That's the important thing.
That's all that we stream for ourselves,
Yeah,
to be honest,
exactly.
so yeah.
Yeah, we just hope other people enjoy it too. But yeah. Uh, oh, what's Lone Wolf saying now?
We've also lost 262 subscribers, so I'm guessing,
Christians who don't like masturbation say you can be very immoral to yourself over and over again. So immoral that you grow hair on your palms.
See, the Muslims have to outdo the Christians in this one, in that they say that if you masturbate when you get to the next life, you're gonna find your hands pregnant.
What?
Yeah, there's some mullahs and imams and that kind of stuff who make statements like one of the punishments in hell for masturbation is that when you get to hell, your hands will be pregnant. Because that's a thing.
What? I mean, what?
I remember these weird comedy takes from religious people. Although it's not comedy to them, they're absolutely serious.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm stuck on that now. That's going round and round my head.
Okay, let's take it back to a kind of severance thing. If your hands are pregnant in hell, yeah, and that means that there's fetuses growing inside, is Allah guilty of torturing fetuses? Because they're in hell and you're being tortured and that the fetuses are suffering?
If they are actually pregnant with fetuses, they'd probably have an excuse like it's not a real pregnancy, it's just a pregnancy you feel and get all the effects, but there isn't really a consciousness in there.
Yeah, but still, he's torturing fetuses.
Unless there are
And
actually
if
demons in
abortion's
there and your
wrong,
hands give birth to demons and then they come out and torture you.
so basically it's anime.
Yes.
It's tentacle porn in hell. I'm down with that.
Yeah. There we go, we've solved it.
Or
I
a
want-
Tsuki Doji in real life.
yeah. I wonder how they actually would justify that sort of thing though. Like
They wouldn't. They're just screaming angry epithets at people they don't like and trying to scare believers into not doing things that they don't like.
yeah, it's fair.
Let's face it, most of them don't think too deeply about what they say.
At least the ones that say those sorts of things. No, I'd agree.
Yeah, exactly.
And the ones that do actually think quite deeply don't say those
Don't
things.
take them serious. Yeah.
So, is there anything else that we can cover off from this show at this time?
Not without going into spoiler detail. And I don't really want to do that for anybody. Maybe revisit it again in a couple of months when
Yeah.
you've watched it, Philip's watched it. We can all have a good chat about it.
No,
And
I'd
put a
definitely love
nice
to
big
do that.
notice saying, this is a spoiler-filled episode.
Yeah, no, I'd definitely love to go back through it and, as you say, a few spoilers, maybe a few clips to actually put up like memorable scenes.
Yeah.
And actually go through that.
Yeah, because there is some stuff that's raised later, as you'll see, that is really worth talking about. But talking about it will spoil the show. Like I say, it's not something I want to do, but I want to get out to people just how great this show is and how interesting it is and how interesting the ideas are. and say, "Go out and watch this." Like I did with The Good Place.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really late to The Good Place, actually. It was you and Kristen talking about it. And it was always one of those things that I was like, yeah. And then I'd completely forgot that either of you had been suggesting it. And I just randomly went, oh, what's this thing? Well, that looks like that could be funny. And it's like you'd probably been telling me for about a year or two to watch
Yeah.
it.
And those are the best kind of shows, though, where it just kind of sneaks up on you, you know. And like we went into the show, me and Emma, with not really knowing anything beyond the tagline, basically. The like 4-line synopsis that you get on a download site for a show. Not that I downloaded it, because I wouldn't recommend illegal things ever. Also, Surfshark, give us a kind of promotion thing, and so that we can recommend people watch these shows and not download them using your product. They should become a sponsor. But yeah, it's one of those shows like The Good Place where not knowing very much going into it just adds to it. Um, but I suppose like there might not be people who think about these things, and I think with a show like this, these kind of things are worth thinking about before going in, so that you can start picking up on them and start getting deeper enjoyment out of it, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. I do with certain movies, like go back and watch them again, having got to the end and understanding what's going on. They're the kind of like movies and TV shows that I like to go back through and go, right, now I know what this is actually about. What have I missed?
Yeah, I love a show like that, and we're gonna do the same with Severance,
Yeah.
because I think there's a lot that you miss that kind of comes out at the end, and it makes you wanna go back and go, "Well, wait a minute, what else did I miss? How did I miss that? Are these things obvious?"
Yeah. Well, maybe that's what we should do. We should wait until we've had 2 run-throughs, and then we give it a proper review. Like, the second time you go through it, jot down some notes for, like, each episode and some time codes, and I'll try and do the same.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of channels that have actually started doing, like, you get the channels that break down a lot of stuff, like the channel, is it called Heavy Spoilers? Where they'll take big shows and they'll go through and they'll pick out Easter eggs and things you might have missed, and kind of point them out. And there's a lot of channels who have done some pretty in-depth breakdowns on them now.
Yeah, awesome. But, Lone Wolf, have you watched Severance yet? If not, stop watching us. Start watching the first episode.
No, he already said earlier he's forgotten all about it, and we just reminded him now.
Fair.
The acting is also top quality in it.
It is. No, it is good. I mean, I'd actually forgotten about it. Dave has been telling me for weeks to watch it, and what was it? You reminded me yesterday, and I was just like, "What's that? What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
But I had to watch a rewatch Russian Doll. I tell you what, I'm looking forward to the second season myself. I think that was quite a good show. It took so long for the second season to come out, though. It's what, almost 4 years since it was released or something?
I've not watched the first season. We started watching it, and then something else came out,
Fair.
a- or a bunch of stuff came out, and it just kind of got pushed to the back because while we enjoyed it, it wasn't something that compelled us to watch.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's on Netflix, so we knew it would always be there, and it's just something we've not actually kind of gone back to yet.
Yeah, fair. I quite liked it. It wasn't as deep as something like this. There was definitely a light-hearted element to it, but I found it really enjoyable, and Katie really liked it. And it's nice finding those programs that you do sort of gel with like that with your partner as well. So yeah. anything I can do to try and get her thinking, about some of these philosophical concepts. Because I think she'd actually enjoy a lot of it. As she said to me the other day, I just hate the God stuff. It bores me. It's like, yeah, well,
Understandable. Yeah.
yeah, that's actually a very small percentage of what we actually talk about. Most of what we talk about tends to come back to morality or epistemology. Um, Generally, we cover all sorts of topics. It's just that there are a lot of people who are interested in the philosophy of religion stuff. So, from time to time, we do that. I mean, that's. I keep getting asked questions about like justifications, and I've been working on a post recently about my personal justifications for why I believe gods don't exist. And I thought, yeah, this will take me no time at all. And I've probably been writing for 2 weeks. It might even be more than that. I don't know. I lose track of time. But yeah, it was one of those ones where I thought, well, what do I need to add to this? What do I need to add to this? And it's already, how I've got the summary for average words per minute that people read. It's got reading time 25 minutes so far, and I don't think I'm anywhere near done. And I don't know whether I should separate it into different parts of articles, because should it be 3 different articles? Because I start it off and I go, what is God? What do I accept as a god, and the types of gods that I don't think should be regarded as gods. And then it goes into my journey from being a Christian to being an atheist. So it goes through a lot of history there. And then it goes into a little bit of history of forming of answers in reason, and it goes into then the arguments against God's existing, and all the different things, and how some of those arguments were part of my original justifications, obviously in a more simplistic form, for no longer believing in certain gods, and other ones which I've obviously learned since, whilst trying to look into this topic more. And yeah, it's just massive, and it's just getting longer and longer and longer the more I write on it. And even in some parts, it's just like, there's this argument, and if you want to learn more about it, check this on IEP, or check this on Waldenpod, or I've given and it's still a 25-minute long read. And then, so if I was to actually read that out loud, that would take me twice as long as well. So it'd be an hour-long show. So yeah, maybe it needs to be split into 3 parts. I don't know, or maybe just let's separate it into pages. I think if anyone was to see an article that said 25-minute read, God no.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, most skeptics won't read more than a tweet.
Yeah. Or the title of an article and then think they know everything about it. I've actually had someone say to me that if I can't get all I need to know from the title, then that's not my problem. It's like, what? Do you go into bookstores and just look around every title? Yeah, I've read 100 books today.
Lord of the Rings, it's all about a lord who owns some rings.
Yeah.
If there's more plot to it than that, then that's not my fault that they've had to got the title wrong and I can't know it. Yeah, there does seem to be a lot of anti-intellectualism when it comes to the skeptic and atheist community these days.
Yeah. And they're so, especially these people that have said this sort of thing to me, are so sure of themselves about how smart and intelligent they are. Yes. Anyway, sorry, I've really gone off the thingy. Oh yeah, read it, set it to 5 times speed, and it'll take 5 minutes to read. Yeah, could do it that way.
I speak so slowly that if you set me to 5 times speed, I just sound like a normal person.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's one that I'll ever do as an article reading. I think there's some other articles that we should probably cover off as article readings. Though I did like the format of the article reading I did on its own, and then the review that we did afterwards as well. It was a little bit easier to do it that way than reading live on air. Um, but yeah, I think that was a format that was all right. And then we've also been tried out a couple of highlights. I still need to do a couple more highlights from that stream. The Godless Granny stream. I put those up. So the feedback we've had on those have been generally quite good, although they say the static is a little bit too loud, so I need to turn that down. But other than that, that was quite cool. And I do need to find some time to go back and do the highlights. What I need to do, though, I keep forgetting to do it, is a pad and a pen and take time codes as we go
And write them
through.
down, yeah.
Yeah, and then I can just go chop 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 chop. But yeah. Do you know what we really need, though? Proper producer. If
A
anyone's
producer
willing
and
to
an
work,
editor,
yeah,
yeah.
anyone willing to work for free, we'll hire.
You'll get a nice credit at the end of the show that all 3 people watch.
Yeah.
It'll go on your CV.
Yeah, that's true. Awesome. But yeah, honestly, everyone out there, do check that out. And Dave, you've got some stuff coming up that you're working on as well. I mean, I know you're busy with your uni course,
And
but
recovering.
yes, yeah.
I am better. I mean, I've got some of the color back now. So I'm guessing I've got most of my blood back in my body.
Yeah, you do look better.
Yeah, I feel better.
Yeah.
Still just kind of feeling a bit worn out and drained, but what are you going to do? But yeah, I'm working on the logic video. Hang on, let me have a look here at my desktop.
So, if you don't remember, Dave and I were discussing logic and reason and having better conversations with Godless Granny a little while ago,
Yeah.
and Dave, through doing it, wrote a load of notes, and he. Oh, you're back. Good.
Yeah. I didn't even realize because I had the file explorer open. I couldn't even see that I'd frozen.
Yeah, fair. So, I mean, I was just saying, you wrote a lot of notes for the Godless Granny stream, and that's inspired you to do a video on logic.
Yeah, just a really basic sort of intro to it. The kind of intro that I wish I could have had before going into studying logic. So just a really basic rundown of some of the ideas, how inferences work, and how certain types of arguments work, and what an argument is, that kind of thing. Because I generally find when you go to a lot of like logic videos teaching you logic, they already kind of assume a certain base level of knowledge. But when you actually speak, I know this is going to sound rude, but when you actually speak to a lot of atheists and skeptics, they don't even have that basic grounding. And I think a video that actually starts from that basic grounding and works its way up. I mean, you read my notes. They go through it in a really basic way, but I think they explain it kind of well.
No, I agree with you. I think that was one of the reasons I did the what does it mean to be logical article as well. That was like a pre-intro to logic, really basic, not as good as the notes that you did, but it's. I mean, to be honest, I didn't even have the grounding that you're speaking of before we started doing the podcasts. I had an understanding of logic from being a programmer. So I did have that sort of logic under my belt, but I didn't necessarily have even the understanding of the difference between validity and soundness, for example.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't. I mean, you think of how many people say the Kalam's not valid.
Yeah,
I
but
know logic, the column's not valid. Well, then you
you
don't know
don't know
logic.
logic.
Yeah. So I think a video, and I might break it up into maybe shorts or, series that goes through like chapters in a book, I guess, like an
Yeah.
intro chapter and then a chapter on how basic arguments work and inference, that kind of thing. I'm still kind of playing with it and writing the script when I've got some free time, but I've lost a couple of weeks due to what happened a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, yeah, of course. I mean, I think it's an effective way to actually do things. I think that there are some people who do enjoy a longer stream and the conversation that they can have with us on here, but I think for like the one shot videos, they work better as like 5-10 minute pieces. um, it's a quick bit of information that they can dip into and come out of. I'm sorry, I'm even the same when I'm looking for new information sometimes, on a website. If I just need a quick answer for something, I'll go to an article and I'll do control F on the
Control F.
article, and search for the bit, and I'll go, right, yes, that's just the bit that I needed for right now. I don't need the entire article. And if they don't have that quick breakdown of that one little point, it's like, right now I need to go back to shits because I don't have the time to always read the entire article. And if that bit's really useful, I'll try and come back to it. But there's even parts when I'm programming, there's certain things that I know how to do, but if I haven't done them for a long time, I need to come back to. And sometimes I get frustrated with things like some of the Microsoft documentation for this bit of SQL, maybe, um, because it's really, 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 really long, and it's just like I just need to know at which point. One thing that I always used to forget was opening a cursor before doing the fetch command. It's in my head now, but it was like, why is my cursor not working? All I needed was just an example of a cursor, and you have to go through all this stuff first to get to it. And I think sometimes, like, if you were talking about logic, someone might just want to know, oh, validity and soundness, for example, and then you've got that 2 minute, 5 minute video on what it is and a few examples, and then you go to the next one, and then it could be really, really useful for someone who needs just that bit of information.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is sort of leads into another reason why I kind of want to do it like the way I'm choosing to do it. When you often hear somebody mention validity and soundness, they'll say, well, validity means that the structure of an argument is good, the inferences follow, and the conclusion necessarily follows from the premises. And then that's the description of validity. But I feel like oftentimes there's a bit missing, which is showing why the inferences follow and why the conclusion follows. And I want to sort of put a little bit of those kind of details in it as well.
That'd be really good. Yeah. um Lone Wolf says, I had a situation the other day where a guy was barking at me, calling me a mad logic atheist and referring to himself as a science atheist, as if science operates without logic. So I was so confused. I mean, he could be.
No, you'll know who it is. She appears in our Facebook group as
Oh, not
well.
that one.
Yeah, I can't remember what her name is. But she's like, well, sociology has p-values. Without p-values, you can't have anything and you can't know anything. I destroy atheists with science, and I show that atheists are science
That
deniers.
one. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So the person who keeps having to create new accounts.
that's the one.
Yes. Okay. um, yes, I know who you're talking about there. Yeah, an incredibly frustrating person.
You can't actually have a conversation with them because they're not listening to you. They're just yelling at you over and over. They're like the atheist version of a street corner preacher.
Yeah, and they were talking about things like sociology, but no, sorry, they were
Yeah,
talking about things like psychology with a degree in sociology or something like that, and then they wouldn't listen to people with degrees in actual psychology
they
saying,
wouldn't
"Well,
listen to
actually,
me
you're
or
wrong." Or to
Luke.
Luke,
Yeah,
who's got a master's in psychology. It's like, okay, so I mean, they're completely entitled to their opinion, but they should defer to a field that they're not specialized in to someone that is specialized in it. Um, be like a physicist going up to Dawkins and saying, "Well, this is wrong about evolutionary biology because of dark matter." What?
yeah. I feel like she's the embodiment of that cartoon where it's like I think atheists and theists are both as extreme as each other. And the response is, well, I'm glad you found a way to feel superior to both of them.
Yeah.
I feel like she's like that. I'm superior to all other atheists because I use p values and sociology and science, and they deny the science. So I'm superior to them.
Awesome. um, yeah, I didn't realize she was also in our Facebook group. I know I've seen her.
Yeah, I've seen Alan yell at her a few times.
Oh, it's not the one. Oh, if it is the same person that keeps uh, jumping on our Facebook page as well, she's the one that's got a foot fetish.
Oh, I don't know
If it's
about
the
that.
one
I
that
didn't know
Alan yells at, I mean, Alan, there's one person that I know Alan gets really, really, really frustrated with, and it's from years of debate groups and everything, and the way she treats people. Because I get
Yeah,
it,
he keeps saying that she smokes too much weed and drinks too much, and then comes on Facebook picking fights with atheists or something like that.
yes, that then it is the same person, and there's nothing wrong with having a foot fetish. It's just my link to that person. I had no clue that the person on Twitter was that person.
Yeah, 123 Resonate is that person
Right. Okay.
because the degrees are the same, the language is the same, the points that they bring up is the same, the arguments are the same. Everything it is that person. I mean, they don't admit to being that person, but I'll 100% stake my life on the fact that it is the same person.
I think I've just remembered her original name before she had to keep changing it because she kept getting banned.
Yeah, I used to know it, but I can't remember it now.
Well, I
Like
mean,
Liz or something.
I'm not one for naming and shaming that often, so I'll send it to you on WhatsApp instead because there's no point in that. I mean, I know we have named and shamed before,
Oh no, definitely. Yeah, no.
but generally it's only if they have. Um,
Yeah. I just saw the WhatsApp, and yes, it's that person.
yeah, wicked. Yeah, generally only if they're a big influence who are incredibly wrong, or there's someone who has been a persistent thorn in our side that just honestly won't leave us alone ever. That they're the only times we'll probably bring up that because yeah. So Craig, you hello. You create new accounts to destroy atheists all over again and just keep destroying.
He
Nice to
destroys
have
them so hard that he blows up his own account while doing it. That's how much destruction he causes.
uh, nice to have you here. How do I know that she had a foot fetish? Because before she started getting drunk and going on these rants, it came up in a conversation, I guess. I can't remember. It's past knowledge. There's also I'm sure it said something like that on her profile, and there were lots of pictures of feet and things like that. But yes, Shannon, nice to have you here. What did you walk in on? You walked in at the end of our show where we were discussing severance and split minds and identity, and somehow we've got onto foot fetishes and trolls.
I blame Lone Wolf.
Yeah, somehow that came up from me asking Dave to just talk about a video he's working on. Yeah, it is your fault, Wolf. Philip's not here to blame. Yeah, it says foot fetish, drinking too much weed, arguing with atheists for no good reason. Are we sure this isn't me?
He was talking to his severed personality.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? A different concept, severed personality with a different gender.
Yeah, there's a really interesting part that goes on later in the show that something akin to what you just mentioned.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, and it's something I wanted to bring up, but I don't think I could because it's heavy spoiler material.
Fair. I really want to see this. I really want to get to the end of this show. No, it couldn't be you, Shannon. No way. You don't get how people have time for soccer accounts. That seems like way too much effort and time to. Yeah, but you're a successful creator. Most people have a lot more free time than someone who one knows as much as you do, and two actually has a successful channel. But yes, just catching up. Yes, exactly. You have a hard time keeping up with your own social media accounts, and yeah, it's because you're successful and you do a good job.
I'm not successful, and I have a hard time keeping up with my social media accounts. I get like 3 messages and tweets a day.
I'm just too obsessed with it all. I don't even want to be on there, and I just constantly open the apps up. But I'm doing really good, I feel, for how addicted I am to just not responding. I sort of open the app and go, no, I don't want to respond to any of that. And I open it up again 30 seconds later. No, I still don't want to respond to any of that. And then I get tagged in something and I get caught in a 3-day pointless conversation. Yeah, social media, man. It was. I honestly believe that when it first came out, like, it was really cool and new and a great connective sort of thing. And I just, I wish I wasn't so deep into it now.
It's like anything else the human race creates, in that it has all these amazing possibilities and brilliant applications, and it basically is just used for picking fights.
Yeah, it is, unfortunately.
For bullying people, insulting people, picking on them, starting fights. That's basically the sum of social media these days.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh, and peddling racist propaganda.
Far too much of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that we've gone off piste long enough for tonight. It's been a really enjoyable conversation, and once again, we can't recommend Severance enough. It's a TV show on Apple TV.
Pirate it though, because Apple doesn't deserve any money.
Definitely worth watching, and I think we will at some point in the future cover more content and include more spoilers. But right now we just wanted to discuss the concepts within it. So if you are just tuning in now, I do apologize that we've already gone through all the content. But we did discuss things like identity, the difference between the person and the man. Your the difference between like your body and your actual self. Branched personality. We did sort of do comparisons with DID, dissociative identity disorder, and moral responsibilities of each personality, and where culpability might lie. Ethical responsibilities of the company, and all sorts of interesting stuff. And then we trailed off into a few different hypotheticals that don't actually happen in the show at all. They were just like, oh, what about if this happened to a soldier, or so on and so forth. And yeah, hopefully you'll give it a replay and let us know what you think. Please, everyone, just leave us some comments if you like sort of content like this. We would like to know. And we hopefully can do some more stuff like this as well. I love it when there's a TV show where there's a lot to bite into. It's not just, yeah, we really like this show and this stuff happened. We've managed to do an entire 2-hour stream, okay, probably only the first hour and a half of it, discussing the philosophy within the show without really giving any spoilers at all. And that's brilliant. And like I said, we'd like to do a show where we actually do discuss stuff that happens in the show in more detail.
Like go into Black Mirror episodes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, actually, Clairview does that, doesn't she? She goes into Black Mirror episodes occasionally.
Yeah.
She's definitely
and she's really good.
Out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you like that sort of stuff as well, definitely check out her show. There's another Dave. Oh my god. Have we got the Council of Daves?
Very scared.
Are we essentially Rick and Morty, Dave?
Yeah, well, I'm a cantankerous old man, so...
I'm just an idiot.
Oh, Rick and Morty. Yeah, but Rick's got better hair than I do.
Yeah, that's fair. And
although my hair was getting very Rick-like before I actually cut it.
I think you should go for it. Do it. Yes, it's the facts. Right, anyway, thank you everybody who has tuned in.
Thank you.
We've really enjoyed it, and yeah, I've enjoyed discussing this. It's as I said, I'm only 3 episodes in and I loved it. Dave's watched the season. We're going to watch it again. We're going to go back through, but all of you, make sure you check out Severance. And I'd love to have a chat with all of you about it in the future. It doesn't have to be on a live stream. It could be in our Discord or on Twitter or anything like that. I'd love to have a chat. But yeah, check it out. And also, whilst we're at it, I would like to say, check out the new video on moral realism. It's a sci-fi short recently released. It's only about 9 or 10 minutes long. Definitely worth checking that one out. It's only about a week old, so yeah.